But it makes me more angry that the government doesn't prioritize the people and cannot think how to improve the life, the quality of the country there in America. So if the US government can just spend some money on the metro, improve the metro to make it a safe place, first of all, for people to use, then more people would use the metro. They would be happier because they don't have to worry about traffic, so they would get to work in a less grumpy mood. There'll be less traffic in New York City, less accidents, less problems, and more happy people. But see, the American government's first priority is not the people.
It's crazy. Is there no money left in America? Where's all the money gone? What is going on? Can anyone explain? America, the so-called land of the free. Can you tell me where are these people's freedoms? Where's their freedom to work when there's no jobs? Where is their freedom to live when there's no affordable housing? Where's their freedom to good health when there's no affordable health care? Is that what a democracy is? They're free to live on the streets. They're free to become a beggar. Is that freedom?
Ask a room of Americans where they'd rather live, China or the United States, and most won't hesitate. For decades, the US has marketed itself as the pinnacle of prosperity, a nation of freedom, individual rights, and endless opportunity. But beneath the headlines, a quiet reversal is taking place. From young professionals to retirees, thousands of people, including Americans, are packing their bags and choosing China. Yes, China. The country many grew up hearing was authoritarian, crowded, or unfree is now where some expats report higher safety, better healthcare, lower stress, and more disposable income. In 2024, an average American expat in China paid just $278 per month for a downtown apartment, rode 350 kilometers per hour bullet trains for the price of a sandwich. This isn't about ideology or passports. It's about quality of life and the trade-offs we're willing to make for it. So today, let's peel back the layers. No nationalism, no propaganda, and explore why, for some people, living in China might actually be better than living in America. In 2024, the median rent in the United States reached a record high, $2,050 per month. That's before utilities, insurance, or basic repairs. For millions of Americans, owning a home is now more fantasy than goal. And it's not just rent. Healthcare in the US has become one of the most expensive in the world. The average annual premium for an individual, $7,911. For families, it climbs to over $22,000. Even basic groceries, milk, bread, vegetables have spiked 25% since 2021. For many middle-class families, financial stress isn't occasional, it's constant. Now compare that to China. In Tier 2 or Tier 3, cities like Chengdu, Dalian, or Qingdao, rent for a modern one-bedroom apartment can range from $300 to $700 a month. That's less than a third of most US cities. For healthcare, public insurance plans start at around 300 to 600 yen per year. That's under 100 USD, and cover up to 70% of hospital bills. A taxi ride across town? Just $2. A steaming bowl of beef noodles? Less than $2.50. Mobile data plans? As low as $5 per month, with 5G speeds. The result? For many Westerners living in China, day-to-day life isn't just affordable, it's relieving. In the US, middle-class families are one hospital visit away from bankruptcy. In China, that same visit might cost less than your cell phone bill. Let's talk about infrastructure, or as Americans might call it, the thing that's always under construction but never seems finished. China's high-speed rail network is the largest in the world. Over 45,000 kilometers of sleek bullet trains connecting nearly every major city. These trains hit 350 kilometers per hour, getting you from Beijing to Shanghai, over 1,200 kilometers, in 4.5 hours. Metro systems operate in over 50 Chinese cities, covering tens of thousands of stations. Entire networks have been built in under a decade, at a pace the West can't match. The US still doesn't have a true high-speed rail system. Amtrak's fastest train, the Acela, maxes out at 150 miles per hour, and only in short stretches. It's more expensive and less reliable, and still takes twice as long. But it's not just long-distance rail. Subways in cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Chengdu are modern, fast, spotless, and expanding constantly. Even third-tier Chinese cities, with populations of 5 to 10 million, now have subway networks that make some US metros look outdated. Expats often describe Chinese cities as sci-fi futuristic, not because of flying cars, but because everything just works. Meanwhile, in the US, New York's MTA took nearly 20 years to add a single subway line, the Second Avenue line. Beijing built an entire international airport, Daxing, in 5. Even digital infrastructure tells the same story. While American homes in rural Kentucky still buffer Zoom calls, remote mountain villages in Sichuan already run on 5G. One city feels like it's constantly catching up. The other feels like it's already arrived. Imagine walking alone at 2 a.m. through a major city and feeling completely at ease. No need to glance over your shoulder, just quiet streets, streetlights, and peace of mind. That's the norm in much of urban China. Measured by global safety data, China's serious crime rate is among the lowest in the world, around 0.5 incidents per 100,000 people. In the US, the figure is nearly 10 times higher. One reason? Incidents involving personal weapons are exceptionally rare. In China, strict regulations mean large-scale public safety threats of this kind simply don't occur in daily life. In 2020, the US recorded over 45,000 such cases nationwide. In China, the number is so low, it barely appears in annual reports. From train stations to parks, public areas feel calm and well-managed. Not because they're heavily guarded, but because disturbances are infrequent. Much of this is due to China's vast surveillance network, over 700 million CCTV cameras nationwide, nearly one camera for every 2 people. It's the kind of thing that raises eyebrows in the West, but on the ground, many residents see it not as a dystopia, but as a deterrent. Bag checks at subway entrances, security guards on trains, AI-powered traffic enforcement, these are all part of a broader social contract, one that prizes order over chaos. Culturally, China leans toward harmony. Arguments are avoided. Public outbursts are rare. Even among strangers, there's a quiet expectation to not disturb the flow. And yes, this comes with trade-offs. Free protest is limited. Online speech is monitored. But as one American expat put it, freedom from fear is a form of freedom. For parents, it can mean sending their child to school with complete peace of mind about their safety. For a solo traveler, it might mean walking home without clutching your keys. For a retiree, it might mean never second-guessing a hospital visit. And for many, especially those coming from cities like Philadelphia, Los Angeles, or Chicago, that kind of peace is worth more than words on a constitution. If there's one thing that can unravel a family's finances faster than rent or tuition, it's healthcare. In the United States, even a single emergency room visit can result in a $3,000 to $10,000 bill, depending on how unlucky you are and how well you understand your insurance plan. In China, the fear of medical bankruptcy simply doesn't exist in the same way. Roughly 95% of Chinese citizens are covered under public health insurance schemes, either through urban employment programs or rural cooperative plans. Basic care is affordable, even without insurance. Seeing a doctor might cost $5 to $20. Prescription drugs are usually cheap generics, and for expats, many are offered employer-provided insurance with broad access to hospitals and clinics. For minor issues, most just pay cash. Because the cost is so low, it's not worth filing a claim. But it's not just the money, it's the psychological relief. There's no looming threat of a surprise ambulance bill, no months spent fighting claims, no skipping care out of fear. And for many expats, that alone is transformative. Statistically, it's working. Life expectancy in China is now 78.2 years, just recently surpassing the US at 76.1. And it's not just healthcare that's accessible. Public services in general, from visa offices to utility payments, are shockingly efficient. Need to pay a parking ticket? Scan a QR code. Want to renew your visa? Use the app. In many cities, government services have been digitized and centralized into single platforms. It's a far cry from waiting hours at the DMV or navigating 1990s-era government websites. In a system where public infrastructure is functional, people spend less time chasing paperwork and more time living their lives. If America is a land of individuals, China is a land of connections. That's not just philosophy, it's lived reality. The culture here leans collectivist. People think in terms of family, neighborhood, and nation. Kids grow up living with grandparents. Aunties and uncles are involved. Neighbors chat daily, and sometimes, yes, scold you if you're not wearing enough layers in the winter. This isn't always subtle, but for many expats, it's comforting. In a world that often feels isolating, China offers a village-like warmth, even inside megacities. Community life plays out in parks and plazas, retirees dancing at sunset, kids chasing each other around koi ponds, strangers inviting you to join a hot pot meal or a karaoke session. Night markets, group dinners, and shared rituals form the fabric of daily life. You don't make a dinner reservation for one. You go out with 10 people, order too much food, and argue over who gets to pay the bill. Expats often tell the same story of strangers going out of their way to help them buy a SIM card, translate a lease, or navigate a chaotic bank visit. The word hospitality doesn't quite capture it. It's more like a reflex, a cultural instinct to include and assist, even when there's no clear benefit. Respect for elders is woven into daily life, in family decisions, on public transport, and even in media narratives, where American culture prizes individualism. Go your own way, be yourself. Chinese culture leans toward collectivism. It's a rhythm that many foreigners find surprising and comforting. And then there's the food. Forget takeout orange chicken. Real Chinese cuisine is diverse, hyper-regional, and built around togetherness. You don't get your own plate. You reach into the center with chopsticks and trust. In a culture that revolves around rituals, family ties, and shared moments, it's easy to feel, well, human again. One long-term expat put it simply, living in China opened my eyes to a new way of life. Not just the culture, but the connections. For many Westerners, especially those tired of individualism and isolation, that may be the biggest reason of all why living in China feels better. Now we arrive at the part most Westerners bring up first: freedom. China is not a democracy. The internet is censored, Western social media is blocked, and political dissent is tightly controlled. And yes, there's self-censorship. Locals avoid sensitive topics online. Expats quickly learn what not to post, especially about the government, Taiwan, or Tiananmen. But here's the twist. Most expats say it doesn't affect their daily lives. They don't come to China to start political movements. They come to teach, work, explore, and live affordably. And most say they can still access the information they need with a little tech literacy and a decent VPN. So here's the real question. Would you trade political chaos for public calm? Because that's what some expats feel they're doing. They leave a country of partisan gridlock, protests, and rising unrest, and enter one where the trains run on time, the cities are clean, and no one is screaming at each other on the subway. It's not a trade everyone would make, but it's one that many are quietly making already. For years, pollution was the go-to critique of life in China. And yes, during the 2000s, cities like Beijing were blanketed in hazardous smog. But the part most people missed is what happened next. Between 2013 and 2022, Beijing's PM 2.5 air pollution dropped by over 65%, thanks to sweeping environmental reforms, coal plant closures, and aggressive clean energy policy. Today, the air still isn't Swiss Alps level, but it's not the toxic nightmare many imagine. Cities like Kunming, Xiamen, and Hangzhou regularly report air quality on par with US urban centers. And when it comes to green tech, China is pulling ahead. In 2022, 25% of all new cars sold in China were electric, compared to about 7% in the US. Entire public bus fleets, like in Shenzhen, have gone electric. Bike share systems are everywhere. Solar water heaters are mounted on millions of rooftops. urban life is increasingly green by design. Tree-lined boulevards, eco-corridors through cities, massive clean energy rail networks. And yet, it's not perfect. Rural water quality remains a concern. Industrial waste, especially in older manufacturing zones, still pollutes soil and rivers. And China is, after all, the world's largest carbon emitter, even as it leads in renewables. Still, for the average city resident or expat, day-to-day environmental quality has improved drastically. The days of wearing air-purifying masks every afternoon in Beijing, for most, they're over. If the US once led on environmental regulation, China now leads on environmental execution. And that's perhaps the biggest surprise of all. So, is living in China better than living in America? That depends on who you are, what you value, and what you're willing to trade. If your priorities are safety, savings, stability, and simplicity, then yes, China might be better. If you value free speech, political transparency, or Western cultural familiarity, you might find China frustrating, even repressive. And that's okay, because there is no perfect country. There's only fit.